DJ, before we get started, when Mason Rudolph was getting basically walked off the field with the worst concussion of all time because the cart allegedly broke, what the hell did he look like to you? Did that remind you of anything?
He looked like a 10-year-old from the 50s dressed up in a Halloween costume.
I thought that, but then my other reaction was like, dude, that is college days. That's dragging your drunk friend home who just has the permagrin and who just like, he can't like quite move his legs up, but he just looks like he's in this happy place. Dude was fucking out.
You can't legally allow somebody to walk off the field after taking their face mask off. That's just like insult to injury. Like, that's just embarrassing.
That was terrible. If we keep drinking like this, we're going to end up looking like that permanently. So let's just get started now. Let's get loaded because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first because we finish last.
Welcome back to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo as he takes a drink of his beer because that's what we do around here. DJ, week 6 in the NFL. It's our fantasy football preview. How are you feeling going into this one? I actually looked back at some of your picks from last week again. Your streak continued.
I am on fire. I actually listed my players for last week because I wanted to remind everybody. I said to use Aaron Jones, Kirk Cousins, and Calvin Ridley as your bargain picks. If you use those guys and put like Christian McCaffrey in there because you saved money, you're welcome. Like, I'm cashing on you. And also, I'm drinking a beer called Dragon's Milk, so I'm gonna pound this. And I'm gonna go have sex with Khaleesi from Game of Thrones.
I was gonna say that's a Game of Thrones reference, I believe.
Yeah.
I do have to give you a little bit of shit because we did a head-to-head fan duel, and once I saw Aaron Jones going off, I'm like, okay, I lost this. What happened in your lineup against me, DJ?
See, I only use my bargain picks in those big leagues that I get into, and then I kind of just mix it up in the rest of the leagues just in case one of those teams goes off. So again, I used my bargain picks in the big league I was in. I ended up cashing again, per usual, 4 out of 5 weeks. Nice. I can't stop it. Pretty soon I'm going to win like $1 million. So I suggest you just keep taking my picks and plugging it in to fill in the gaps for those guys that you know are just going to go off like Christian McCaffrey on a week-to-week basis.
Exactly. No, they're working out. So it is week 6. It is our fantasy football preview. As always, we're talking daily fantasy stacks, DJ's bargains, some must-use guys, some must-avoid guys, some general advice. We close it out with some fantasy football start, sit, trade questions, whatever the listeners have for us, we answer. So DJ, let's kick it off right away with your bargain quarterback of the week.
You're going to love my bargain quarterback.
Oh, Jesus.
I am going with a $6,400 quarterback playing against the Washington R-Words. Your boy, Josh Rosen. This guy, he's the perfect tournament option. I am starting him this week in my tournament option because if you're not going to make money, if you don't go and try to dig in the crumbs, Josh Rosen, I am going up. I'm finding that special little crumb. You know what his completion percentage was last week versus the Chargers, Mr. Dolphins fan?
I would say last week he was actually awesome because the Dolphins didn't play, which means they didn't lose, which means I didn't die a little bit inside. But go ahead with his completion percentage against the Chargers.
I was thinking, yeah, last week against the Chargers, 72% of his he completed against the Chargers.
How about
That's
that?
incredible. I mean, Baker Mayfield's completing like 52%, so I don't know what that tells you. And Washington is, I think it's 23rd against the pass. Josh Rosen has game. He's playing with a crap offensive line, bad wide receivers, completing 72% of passes against a good defensive backfield with shit wide receivers. This guy can play. He's going to complete passes. I think the Dolphins go in and win this game, and you don't get the first pick. The Redskins do, but you don't have to worry because they're not going to take Tua Tagovailoa. Nailed it. But Josh Rosen is he's a diamond in the rough this week. I'm plugging him in for 3 touchdown passes this week because they're not going to run it in.
I have so many things to say. First and foremost, you're right. If they win that game, I'm going to be pissed. 2, part of me when I was looking at the quarterbacks this week, I'm like, okay, Rosen and freaking Colt McCoy or whoever, Case Keenum, whatever quarterback is playing for Washington. I'm like, they're there. They're cheap. Colt McCoy. They're there. They're cheap. God, you can afford a lot of nice, great guys if you have them. But you know what? I don't have that you might have this week. cojones. I do not have the cojones to pull the trigger on that. I get it. I understand your point and everything, but it's FanDuel. You're going against multiple people, even if the quarterback that you use that's not Josh Rosen has just an average day, it's a safer floor than what Rosen can provide. And you don't have like this, we're not in multiple leagues. It's FanDuel. It could be a head-to-head thing. Like it's one lineup. You have to hit on so many other people. You don't have all the people to back you up in FanDuel because you're going in tournaments, you're going against so many other lineups. I don't feel safe. I do think you're crazy. That's coming from a Dolphins fan who wants to believe, DJ. You're crazy.
Dude, if I can plug in Josh Rosen and get me 20 points from Josh Rosen while I'm saving money to use a Christian McCaffrey because he's just going to continue to do what he's doing, or an Alvin Kamara because those two are far and away right now the most like freakish running back, or Mark Ingram this week is
right.
a perfect fit as well. Like somebody like that. More likely McCaffrey or Kamara. Absolutely, I'm going. I don't even know if do the Saints play this weekend.
Yes, they do. They play the Jaguars.
Okay, I didn't even see him on the list, but yeah, I can't imagine not plugging him in and using guys like that.
Before I get to my quarterback, I'm actually breaking out another stack this week. I've been kind of tucking it into the way I've been doing it recently, but I do have an all-out stack of the week this week. But before I do that, all offseason, DJ, all pre-draft stuff, I was saying if you have the number one pick, you take Christian McCaffrey. You don't take Saquon. You don't take Kamara. You make it McCaffrey. Can I get like an attaboy? Can I get a podcast version of a pat on the back? Where has the love been? Me and your boy Mikey, our former writer who's now doing work for Goal Line Fantasy, we were the guys, DJ, and I'm not getting enough love here.
I honestly believe that Kamara is going to end up as the better, higher running back, and Saquon would have finished right up top there if Saquon got to play all season. So I can't give you an attaboy for a guy getting injured. And I still think Kamara's the guy, dude. I think you're going to see it. The weakness for Carolina is that they don't have much else going on besides defense and then McCaffrey. I mean, we saw Tampa Bay shut them down 1 week. They're facing them again this week. I imagine similar results. Not as bad, but not going to be a great week again for McCaffrey coming up. So Tampa Bay is good against the run. They're terrible against that pass. I don't know. I think you're going to see some down numbers, and Kamara just can continue on this elevation that he's always on. I'm
just going to pretend that you said attaboy, and I'm going to say thank you and you're welcome and everything, and I'll go on to my stack. So I appreciate that, DJ. Attaboy.
Yeah, okay.
Here's a stack I think you might like because this is the quarterback you rolled out against me last week. That unexpected. I didn't really see it coming. My stack of the week is Kyler Murray and Larry Fitzgerald. The Atlanta Falcons, your probably least favorite team in the NFL right now, has slowed down absolutely nobody. Here's the thing about Murray, too. We all know he has the ability to run. Atlanta's defense, 23rd overall, 20th against the pass. And what have we seen from Murray this year? A pretty safe floor. His lowest is 16. His highest is 25, and that came last week against the Bengals. Terrible defense. I wouldn't be shocked to see this dude put up another 25-pointer. And here's the thing about Fitzgerald. I got to pull up his numbers real quick. After that hot start he went out to, a little bit cooled down. He had 21, 13, and then 12. He's been at 7 and 8 the last 2 weeks. I don't want to guarantee too much, but I'm feeling pretty damn confident that he reaches double digits. He's $5,600 this week. He's a bargain play. With Murray, you're a little bit more on the expensive side of the quarterbacks, but you're making up for it by spending $5,600 on Larry Fitzgerald. The targets have been there. He's gotten 13 in a game this year. He's gotten 11. He's gotten 8. He's gotten 7. The targets are going to continue to be there, especially against that Atlanta Falcons defense. You know I'm not a big Kyler Murray guy, but when it comes to FanDuel, when it comes to 1 week, this is his week, dude, they're gonna put up points. They're gonna be in that game. I don't know what that spread is yet, but it's probably closer than I would have ever imagined going into the season. Stack of the week, you heard it here, Kyler and old Larry Fitzgerald.
So Kyler Murray I used last week just because I just didn't see how I couldn't use him in a league or two because he's playing against a shit Bengals team. I know that it's going to be close because they both suck. He's going to run the ball, and they suck in the red zone. But I figured he'd have those rushing yards like Lamar Jackson.
And what did he get, like 90 last week? He got like
Yeah,
90
I
last
I
week,
don't
I
know,
think.
but and it was the right pick. He's just not a guy that I want as my actual NFL
Right.
franchise quarterback, and you can see why he's still missing tons of passes against a bad defense. He was bad in the air. Same with Lamar Jackson. I want to talk about Lamar Jackson for a second. People are saying people are out there saying that our Lamar Jackson haters or whatever are just like digging our heels in. We finally have something. They went off against the Miami Dolphins, and then he's just gotten worse and worse through the air. Like his strength, and maybe the Ravens are using him wrong, which they probably are because they're throwing the ball way too much. Run the ball with Ingram, run the ball with Lamar Jackson. Use that to set up some wide open play action options because he cannot drop back on a shotgun and throw a pass confidently. You can't be confident in that. This is not a playoff team, but they may be a playoff team in this division.
After watching the Browns on Monday night, I was going to bring this up. The Ravens might stumble in just because they're maybe the most competent in that division with the Steelers under their 800th quarterback, with the Browns not being able to protect anyone, with Baker looking like this is his rookie year. It could be the Ravens by default.
But the Browns just beat them last week and beat the
true.
shit out of them. So I don't get it. It's going to come down between, I don't even know. I think it's going to be the three of them, the Steelers, Browns, and Ravens for the division. Of course, the Bengals are bad, really bad, these last few years, and this is the one year they'd have a chance with these shit teams. But they're so bad, they can't even compete with these bad teams.
Right.
The AFC North is now the worst division in football, and I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's anywhere close. It used to be the AFC South. AFC North has easily taken that over. Lamar Jackson's not a good quarterback. I'm sorry to tell you. You can see it. It's week to week. He just can't. He's just not a quarterback. He's not going to win you games. So I'm going to talk about it. But I do who does Kyler Murray play again?
They play against the Falcons.
I don't know. Again, I'm harder because they're not a good team, but they're better than the Bengals, and that makes me worried for Kyler Murray.
And before we go on to running back, I do want to talk about this game a little bit because the Chiefs play the Texans, and the two most expensive quarterbacks are Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. So let's say that you're going to pick one of those expensive guys in their matchup and just hoping that it's a shootout. Which one of those two would you feel more comfortable in going the expensive route with?
Oh, Watson, easily.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way.
There's just the defense. Yeah, the defense is a little bit better on the Houston side of the ball. It seems like Mahomes has kind of been, the last 2 weeks has been really slow, and he struggled against the Lions. He had the one touchdown pass, and everybody was crowning him the king, and then did nothing this last week in the Sunday night game and lost to the Colts. So and then we saw Deshaun Watson just go off against the Falcons, and the Chiefs are bottom 3, bottom 5, bottom 7, somewhere in that area. Whereas defense is in the league, so 100% I'm going Deshaun Watson.
I want to know really how bad is Mahomes' ankle, because I think that's some of it, and it's funny too because after the first 2 weeks of the season, after they were still rolling, Tyreek Hill wasn't even playing. I was like, dude, if you wanted to rid yourself of that guy who could potentially be week to week with all of this off-field stuff, trade him, get rid of him. Now I'm thinking man, I don't know that you have the luxury to do this. We thought you could just plug and play people, and the offense just hasn't been clicking the way that we're accustomed to. So I don't know if it's defenses slowly catching on, if it's Mahomes' ankle, what it exactly is. But this week, in what I expect to be probably the highest point total on the board, if it doesn't happen this week, there's a little bit more cause for concern. So for that, I'm with you on Watson. On FanDuel, he's $800 cheaper. He's the threat to run. You said that about the Chiefs defense. They're going to be able to give it up a little bit. Watson coming off 5 touchdowns. That's my only worry is it's the week-to-week regression that he might face.
Dude, and let me talk to you about something about Patrick Mahomes and this ankle injury that people are talking about. Okay, he sprinted for 15 yards at the end of that game, number one. Number two,
adrenaline.
Don't get this guy who you're trying to hype up as the best quarterback. Many people are trying to hype up as the best quarterback we've ever seen, trying to overtake Aaron Rodgers. If I remember correctly, Aaron Rodgers at 35 years old, in week 1 of 2018, broke his leg and tore a ligament, came out on one leg and won a football game against the number 1 defense in the NFL last year. Don't give me this ankle shit. Prove it on the field with one ankle. Go out there and win games. You can't go out there and lose and be like, oh, his ankle. Aaron Rodgers did it. He didn't do that. He won the game on one leg against the best defense in the league. Don't give me that shit. He's not there yet.
In that game, the Aaron Rodgers one you're talking about, when they interviewed him afterwards, he had the same look on his face as Mason Rudolph. They were both hammered.
Whatever, dude. He's just winning games.
Let's talk about your bargain running back of the week.
My bargain running back comes from the same game we were talking about. I am going Carlos Hyde of the Houston Texans, $6,000 versus the Chiefs. I think Carlos Hyde went for 60 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
He's their first down back. They bring in Johnson on the other, third down and passing downs. But who's going to score their touchdowns? It's going to be Carlos Hyde. Who's going to be handed the ball when they're controlling the ball and keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field? It's going to be Carlos Hyde. Who's giving up a ton of rush yards every game and not able to stop the run? It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Carlos Hyde is going to be a workhorse. They are not going to throw it. I would bet the end of this game because the Texans are going to move slow. They're not going to throw it up and down like they did against the Falcons. I nailed the over in the Falcons game last week. I'm telling you, people are going to love the over in this because it's going to be like 50-something points. They're going to love it because they're going to think it's easily going to go over. Houston's going to slow it down. Carlos Hyde's going to run the ball. He'll have 100 yards and a touchdown at least. Easily plug Carlos Hyde into your lineup. And he's catching a few balls, so that's always an added bonus.
It's funny because, the Chiefs are 30th, I believe, against the run. And with Hyde, I almost actually plugged him in last week. And then he had 60 yards and the touchdown. He put up 12, which at that price isn't going to kill you. That was his season high. He's been pretty safe. He's been around 8 to 9 every single week. I don't mind that, though. It's kind of like the whole strategy of get as many guys in that high-scoring game as you can get, and he'll probably get a goal line carry, That's just kind of seems to be how it is. And we haven't seen as much of, Duke Johnson as people – remember how, the Duke Johnson hype went, through the roof as soon as Lamar Miller went down?
Yeah.
You nailed it. You drafted Carlos Hyde before he was even a member of the Texans, assuming he would go to Houston, and that worked out for you. It's amazing. So, just ride your wave.
It was a big-time guess, just reach it. And it worked out.
You talked about the guy that I'm using, who's not a bargain, by the way, but you mentioned Mark Ingram in that game against the Bengals. And the reason I like him is because of what you said, though. I think that the Ravens are going to realize, hey, we need to scale back on how many times we're letting Lamar Jackson drop back here. And you saw it a little bit last week because Ingram had a season-high 19 carries. He only had 44 yards. Let me tell you what. You give this dude 19 carries against the Bengals run defense, he's not running for just 44 yards. He's going to be pushing the 100 yards. He's already topped that mark twice this year. He's got 6 touchdowns for the season. I see him definitely doing that again. And here's the thing, too. Pretty safe floor. I would say a running back for the Ravens this week has a pretty safe floor. The dude's got boom potential. He's put up 23 once this week. He's put up 30 this year. He's put up 34 earlier this year. I think the Ravens just stick to the ground in this game. They're gonna really have their way. This is another game that's gonna make the Ravens look good. It's probably gonna make Lamar Jackson look pretty good as well. But if they want to get back to who they really are and what they're good at, it's gonna be a Mark Ingram game. So I think he's probably my go-to running back that I desperately want to play in all of my DFS lineups.
Yeah, so the strength for the Steelers is their run defense. So you can kind of expect that kind of game out of Ingram in that they're going to key on the run. They are challenging Lamar Jackson to throw it, and it worked. Honestly, they should have won that game. Lamar Jackson was 19 of 28 for 61 yards, 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
QBR of 20 and a rating of 54.9. He ain't it. And their secondary is below average right now. They just are. So they need to continue to run the ball, and it's going to work much better against the Bengals team than it is in comparison to playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose strength is running the ball.
Right.
On defense, I mean.
So in this game, the dreadful Redskins-Dolphins game, the Dolphins come into that with the 32nd ranked run defense. Let's say that you're going to go ultimate bargain at running back, and you're either going to use Chris Thompson, who I believe is about 5,400, or Adrian Peterson at 5,300 against the Dolphins. Which one would you go with? Because I have a feeling at least one of those guys is definitely going to give you that ROI at that price.
It's probably Chris Thompson. I just don't trust Adrian Peterson's old ass out there on the field trying to drag his foot behind him. Fuck, Chris Thompson could catch a ball and go 80 in a second against this Dolphins team that's just. I mean, both these teams don't care, but Chris Thompson, I might plug him into my touchdown league and Cohen and just try to get some magic out of him to get some long receiving touchdowns, because this is the week to throw Chris Thompson in the lineup.
See, my only theory is, because I think I'm with you, end of the day, if I have to play one of these guys, if I'm looking for the bargain running back, I would probably side Thompson over Peterson. The reason, in some of the lineups I've done so far, the reason I haven't is because I could see this game being a game where Washington can just do whatever they want to on the ground. And when it comes to all-out carries, that's probably Peterson. And we all think Adrian Peterson, the dude's a fossil. He's just been around forever. He has, what we saw last year, he has a couple games sprinkled in every once in a while where he looks like Adrian Peterson of old. If he's ever going to do that this year, it's probably going to be this week.
Do you think Dwayne Haskins may start this week, though? Now that they fired Jay Gruden?
Well, I think they said it didn't matter. I think they said that they were going to go with McCoy anyways.
Oh, that was it. Because from what I hear, from what everybody talks about there, they want to play Haskins in the ownership or in the general managers and all the upper people, and Jay Gruden didn't like him. And that was part of the battle. So I thought maybe.
I talk all the time about how dysfunctional the Dolphins are as an organization, and man, the Redskins are right there with them. Daniel Schneider, man, him and Stephen Ross, they must be great buddies because they just run shit into the ground.
Dude, the Redskins are the worst managed football team, and they're just terrible. They are terrible. There's nothing good about them, and then they talk cocky, and they're just incompetent, arrogant assholes. Well, they just should all be fired. Bruce Allen, Dan Snyder should die. I feel bad for I feel bad for the Redskins fans. They have to sit there, deal with this racist ass name with probably a racist ass owner and a racist ass GM coming out here and say the attitude in the locker room is fantastic. Nobody believes that, you idiot. Your team sucks. Everybody hates each other. Nobody wants to play. Poor Dwayne Haskins is in this terrible situation where he doesn't know if anybody even likes him. Nothing's good.
That's the thing, and I heard some people talking about the idea that, well, depending on who they bring in as a coach, maybe that coach is going to want to hit the reset button and bring in his own guy, kind of like what happened in Arizona last year with Kyler Murray. So now is Dwayne Haskins going to be the next Josh Rosen?
No, Dwayne Haskins is good. They won't do that. We see. I mean, look, it's not working out for Arizona, so it's not like that's a good model to follow by any means.
Only time will tell. Well, let's bring in the conversation to some wide receivers. Who's your bargain play here?
So after week one, I said this guy, I drafted him in 2 leagues, I believe it was, and I said he's now starting in every single one of my leagues every week. He then proceeded to go get a little bit of an injury, had to get some arthroscopic knee surgery. Now he was back, and he went off against the Green Bay Packers. Michael Gallup, $6,100 versus New York Jets. I can't even explain how much I love Michael Gallup. When Dak Prescott said this guy was a monster, and I watched him play, I was like, that's some of that talk, but he looked good. I'm going to take a late-round chance on him. I watched him play game one, and he looked like a monster, and I already fell in love with him. Now he played against the Packers, had over 100 yards, had a touchdown. In the 2 of the 3 games, he's had over 100 yards that he's played. He's getting one-on-one coverage because fucking Amari Cooper is on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is a legit number 1 wide receiver in this league already. I believe that. He's route running. He's getting open. The way he goes up against the ball, he's great. He's a really fucking good wide receiver. I know it already. He's a great wide receiver. He should be in your lineup.
Does this game sort of feel like it's a game against the Jets where the Cowboys are likely not all too worried? We all would probably say that the Cowboys are.
And Darnold.
What's that?
And Darnold's back. I don't count anything anymore. I throw the whole Jets record out the window with Sam Darnold back, so I can't even I think they could have won 2 of the 4 games with Sam Darnold.
Well, where I was going with this, it kind of, to me, it feels like a game that I think the Cowboys might struggle a little bit, but I see that the Jets is kind of struggling throughout it as well. And because of that, it might not be like this highly offensive game where the Jets defense is still pretty solid. It's just always on the damn field. It doesn't have any support. Now, if it gets a little bit support and it plays even a little bit better, it's not having as many possessions. maybe that's like a hindrance to Prescott and Zeke and Gallup and Cooper this week. That's why I was looking at it, and I avoided all Cowboys this week just because that matchup, it shouldn't make me all that nervous, but for some reason it did.
Okay, so New York Jets, I think they were 20 something against the pass, pretty good against the run. I think except they were around 12th overall defense, and there was another reason I like them. Again, Cooper's going to get all the focus or all the rolled coverage. Michael Gallup is the number one receiver, just winning all of his matchups, and a clear number two. These two wide receivers can be like Evans and
Godwin,
Godwin right now. Like those two match pairs are maybe the two best pairs right now in the NFL. I love Michael Gallup. I can't get over it. But Dak's probably gonna have a bounce back game against a secondary that's not great. I don't think Zeke's gonna be amazing. Zeke has underwhelmed me so far this year. I'm really annoyed by that in general. So, I mean, Dak's going to have to pick it up. He usually does pretty good after he's, Kirk Cousins type of thing, but he's better than him, where he's had a bad couple of games. He's got all this criticism. He's going up against a not very good secondary, but a team that can stop the run. This is where he has to come out and throw the ball. And they need to win. They need to win. They're the desperate team that's actually pretty good.
Oh, for sure, after the last couple of losses there.
Yeah.
So you had a bargain guy. I'm going to tell you an expensive guy at wide receiver because there's no one more primed for a breakout game as an expensive wide receiver than DeAndre Hopkins. I am riding the wave with this dude again. Yeah, Julio maybe. But here's the thing about Hopkins. 27 fantasy points week 1. He didn't even top 10 points the rest of the year until finally last week. He had 88 yards, no touchdowns. He hasn't scored since week 1 either. Guess what? Will Fuller has those games. Will Fuller had the exact Will Fuller type game last week. That's what he does a couple of times a year. They're not going to get pushed right next to each other. And we talked about this earlier. That Chiefs-Texans game is going to be according to Vegas, most likely, the highest scoring game that we're going to see this week. I want all the action, and I want the wide receiver who's like primed to break out. Go ahead. He's cheaper than he usually is. He's $8,400 on FanDuel. It's because he's had some down weeks here. That's not going to last. We see it all the time. The stud wide receiver, you can only hold him down so long. It's going to be his turn for that 100-yard game, the 2 touchdowns. This is the week. It's the prime candidate. If it's a shootout, he's going to get targeted like crazy. He hasn't had double-digit targets since week 1. That's going to change. He hasn't had 100 yards receiving since week 1. That's going to change. He hasn't scored since week 1. That's going to change. This is the week I'm going all in on Nuke Hopkins.
So on that Nuke stuff.
Always.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to. Who knows?
Lots of noises.
It's like one of those things is I have to feel it out because I always have money for a good running back and a good wide receiver. Usually I can get like any wide receiver running back I get after I plug in some of my bargains, and it's been working out really well for me.
Yep.
We'll see how I feel in the moment. It's how I'm feeling on Sunday morning when I'm plugging the rest of those guys in around my bargain picks. Literally, That's what I've been doing. I go into that $1 million or $3 million league on Sundays. I already have those guys in because when we prep for this, I just push them in there.
Yep.
And then when I get in there, they're already plugged in. And then I just plug in guys around them. Sometimes I change up the quarterback, but I always leave the skill positions every time.
Right. Well, since we both hate tight ends, let's talk a little bit more wide receivers. Do you think this is an outrageous statement? Is DJ Chark the best value play right now at wide receiver? Because let me give you a couple of numbers here. 15 or more fantasy points in 4 of his 5 games.
Good.
He's had 1 game this year with 22, another with 32. 54 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks, and those games were against the 9th, 7th, and 8th best passing defenses in the league. It doesn't matter who he's played. The dude has been on, and he's still cheap.
Carolina was number 1 best pass defense in the league last week.
Oh, I had him at 8, but either way.
Right now, right? You have him at 8 right now?
True, yeah.
They were number 1 last week.
Crazy.
I put my DJ Chark as a sit-up on my article thinking that was a lock.
Yeah.
And then he just goes off. And I love him because his name's DJ. If you have DJ Moore or DJ Chark, if you're DJ in this league, you're going to dominate. It's pretty much a guarantee. I don't know why I would go against my own kind.
I was looking up just like overall fantasy ranks today. I wanted to see kind of like who was where after the first 5 weeks of the season. I think DJ Chark was the number like 2 or 3 wide receiver in the entire NFL. We're talking about a guy who wasn't even drafted in most standard leagues for the Jaguars after Nick Foles got hurt.
Yeah, if Nick Foles comes back and they put him in, everybody in the Jaguars, like all the fans, should just not go to the game.
Minshew mania. We're all here for it.
You can't take Gardner Minshew out. You can't do it. You can't take him out. I don't care that they lost last week, although I nailed that pick. But I don't care that they lost last week. Gardner Minshew is he's the real deal. I can't. He's so fucking accurate. He's great in the pocket. He has some big ball. I don't know where it came from at all, but this guy is poised like. His pocket presence is Aaron Rodgers ish. Like how he jumps around, looks behind him, goes right, goes left, and then finds a guy. It just extremely accurately.
It came from his dad. Have you seen that guy? He's jacked. He's got old man dad strength, like to the T.
It's crazy. I'm thoroughly impressed by Gardner Minshew. And Cam Newton will have the starting job when he gets back. Nick Foles will not.
Wow, that's a bold predicament or a bold statement because I don't think that's going to happen.
Kyle Allen's been average ever since his one game.
Yeah, but like McCaffrey's been playing better. Like it's a weird thing that McCaffrey got better once Newton got out.
McCaffrey went off in game number 1 against Cam Newton for like 1,000,000 yards.
Yeah, I guess.
He did. I had him in my FanDuel lineup that week.
One more wide receiver question here for you, DJ, because this team finally they didn't have to play the Bears this last week, so they played better, and it's the Vikings who got to play the Giants. And we saw a nice breakout game from Adam Thielen. I know we were telling people left and right on Twitter to plug in Thielen. We called that one. But Stephon Diggs, they targeted him early, and then I think he ended with like 3 targets for the entire game or a couple of catches. Do you have thoughts on maybe using one of those guys against Philly? And if so, who would you give preference to?
I mean, Philly's secondary also stinks, and they're amazing against the run. So Kirk Cousins is going to have to play. I'm giving Stephon Diggs one more chance. If he doesn't bust out this game, then you have to get rid of this guy. But I feel like it's like, okay, we highlighted Adam Thielen. Let's highlight Stephon Diggs, keep him happy. Because if you don't get him the targets, he stops playing. That makes Adam Thielen less useful.
Oh, for sure.
Because then Stephon Diggs doesn't care anymore, and then the Vikings just suck again.
Part of me, after watching the Packers play the Eagles and just watching how Rodgers was able to just pinpoint every single ball to Adams before he got hurt, and it was clockwork. I'm like, you have to use one of these really good receivers against that Eagles defense. And part of me is like, yeah, I kind of want to go with Diggs on the he's due rule that's in my head. But at the same time, man, I've always been a Thielen guy, and I just think that you kind of have to ride that one out. I think you have to go Thielen over Diggs this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a wrong thing to say, but I just want to give him one more chance.
I can get behind that. Let's go to...
I don't want to miss the train.
All right, you want to be early on. You want to get a good seat.
Can I talk about the Falcons real quick, because I'm rewinding back to something you said?
Yes, please.
I don't even have to, they don't even need me bashing them and hating them anymore. They have just done it to themselves up to this point. I can't wait to talk about them on the ATS episode when we do that tomorrow probably and gets released on Friday or whatever we do. I can't wait to talk about the Falcons, but they don't need me to hate them anymore. I can't wait to put the onus on you. I don't want to do it right now. I'm just going to wait till we get to that ATS episode.
I'm going to have to come up with something because at this point, all I'm going to do is sit there in silence, and it's just going to be a silent podcast because I can't talk about the Falcons anymore. I'm so sick of that shit. Yeah. Tight end,
I meant to say onus, not onus.
Fair enough. Who's your bargain tight end of the week?
So I talked about this guy, I think, preseason. I didn't even realize he was suspended for 4 games. You're like, well, he's not playing. This week he is back. Chris Herndon, $5,400 versus Dallas. Back from suspension. Darnold is back from kissing titties. Dallas is 24th against Dallas is 24th against tight ends. Like you like to say, Herndon, Darnold, collision course. Big game.
I'm looking that up real quick because this is week. Oh wait, so we're in week 6. I thought Was he eligible to play last week and they just didn't bring him
Week.
back, or was that the game that he just wasn't eligible for?
I thought they had a bye week in week.
They had a bye week 4.
3 or whatever.
Yeah, they had a bye.
Week 4, so then he wouldn't be able. So you have to be out for 4 games that they play. So
right.
1, 2, 3, and 5.
Yep, and then it says
so he's eligible to come back this week.
I will say, just to the listeners and you, since just so you know, it said that Adam Gase needs to evaluate Chris Herndon in practice before activating him to the 53-man roster. And while I'm with you, I think at the end of the day, he'll probably end up getting activated, and it'll be a non-story. Just pay attention. Make sure he's active.
No, I mean, Adam Gase is an idiot, but
we know that.
He's already named Sam Darnold. This guy couldn't name Sam Darnold the starter any faster. I can't believe people weren't talking about the presser when he's like, Sam Darnold has mono, and the face he made, he's like he gave up from there. He's like, yeah, so that's what we're dealing with. It's like,
right.
The faces he made were so ridiculous. Like, you could see he was thinking, like, what kind of idiot gets mono during the football season? Like, that's what he was thinking. He's like, now I'm screwed.
Was he hanging out with 8th graders? What happened here? Nice. My tight end this week is Will Dissly. I don't need to say too much more. I find myself now looking at tight ends in daily fantasy and just saying, like, well, there's about 5 of them that I can choose from. I mean, that's it. I can choose from about 5 guys, and he's one of them.
I try to scroll down past like 6 and find one.
Don't do it.
I try to do this every week. I try to scroll down, and I'm like, maybe I can find one. And I'm like,
no.
This is why I hate tight ends more than any position. It's worse this year than any year I've ever remembered.
Mm-hmm. No, it's ridiculous.
This is terrible.
Like Will Dissly wasn't even being picked, and he's probably like Austin Hooper's number 1, and I think Will Dissly's in the top 3 or 4 for points scored from tight ends this year.
Yeah, it's like I'm almost like, even though Jimmy Graham doesn't play Sunday, he'd be a guy that I would consider just because of the game last week. But it's like, he's trash too. So if I had to consider a guy like Jimmy Graham, fuck, we're screwed.
You might as well use Herndon, even if he's not active. Just throw him in there. He's got a good chance.
He's going to play. I mean, Adam Gase is going to give him all the weapons he has.
Oh, I'm with you. I just want to make sure he is playing before I submit a lineup. But let's look at some listener questions.
Submit it right now.
What? Oh, you're going to submit it right now.
I'll submit it right now.
Well, let's look at some listener questions, and then you can submit it. So this guy here is looking to add wide receiver depth via the waiver wire. Wants us to rank DK Metcalf, Mohamed Sanu, and Auden Tate. What's your ranking of those 3 guys for wide receiver depth?
Christ. I guess I would go... God, it all depends on matchups here. I got to look at them real quick here. I would think I would go... Who do the Bengals end up facing here?
Facing.
So... I'm going to say Tate, Metcalf, Sanu.
Okay, well, I'm Metcalf, Sanu, Tate. And I think it's more so not even just for this week, but for like rest of season, just having depth. And with that Seattle Seahawks offense, it's Dissly, it's Lockett, it's the running game. And then you're going to get DK Metcalf sprinkled in here and there. So I sort of like him number 1. I'm not huge on Sanu. And my beef with Tate would be like, if AJ Green, when he comes back, if he's not traded, because there's all these rumors surrounding him right now, I think Auden Tate sort of disappears a little bit. But the one thing you would have is John Ross being hurt as well. So maybe I would end up going Metcalf, Tate, and then Sanu, just because of my hatred right now towards Atlanta and my love for Julio and Calvin. So yeah, I'm going Metcalf number 1, and then I'm kind of a tie between Sanu and Tate. Let's do one more here. Potential keeper league trade. This guy would be trading away Michael Gallup and the 6th, which I'm assuming is the 6th round, and getting in return T.Y. Hilton and an 8th. The league is half PPR. His other wide receivers are Robert Woods and Julian Edelman. So basically, would you trade away Gallup and your 6th for T.Y. and your 8th?
Oh, 100% no. I want Michael Gallup all over my team. Are you kidding me? I just hyped him up. Michael Gallup would be a staple. Woods is older. Edelman's older. Gallup's better than Hilton, in my opinion, at this point, with no Andrew Luck in the future. Michael Gallup, 100 times out of 100.
I was actually on the opposite end of this one, and then the more I thought about it throughout the day here, I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. One, it's a keeper league. It's not like T.Y. Hilton's super old, but I think he's turning 30 this year. But Gallup's in his second year. He's in an up-and-coming offense. He's got a young quarterback in Dak. If Andrew Luck was still there, it'd be a different ballgame. But since he's not there and we don't know what's happening with the Colts, I'm with you. I think I'm keeping Gallup here. I'm not gonna go for the bigger name in T.Y. Hilton. So yeah, I'm with you. 100% Gallup. DJ, with that, is there anything else you would like to add to today's podcast?
I've got nothing, man.
All right. Well, as always, check us out on Twitter. We're found at Loaded Box. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. Our next episode, as DJ said, will be our Week 6 game-by-game and against the spread pick, so make sure you check back later in the week for that. Available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review. DJ, send us out.
What are you talking about? You're from fucking Dedham, dude.
You gonna say bye? After you slam that beer?
No.
Bye.